Does he do better today on Duke the River? We're going to look back at what went down at Super Park on this past Saturday as they drew against Club de Foot Montreal. As we look ahead at this upcoming Sunday's matchup against Nashville SC, we're going to be opening up their brand new spanking stadium as they also look for revenge. Ladies and gentlemen, you do not want to go anywhere because you do not want to miss this episode of Duke by the River. And let's get this started, guys. Done it.
Duke by the River
doesn't do anything well. There is not one.
I'm sorry. There was no creativity.
As a Union fan, I take that all day.
Another DP. We need to go get Mario Balotelli. And that is right. Welcome, everyone, to Duke by the River, the show where we follow everything Philadelphia Union. And, of course, we are brought to you by Philly Sports Network. Before we dive into today's episode of Duke by the River, real quick, ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching this live on El Parcero Phillies YouTube channel, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe. We do broadcast all of the live portions of our podcast on here. And, of course, you can find us wherever you stream podcasts on Apple, Google, and Spotify. You can find us under PSN Radio, and you can find all of your favorite Philly Sports Network podcasts on there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce to you today our experts in duping. And of course, first off, let's start off with our man, Justin Infantino, body double Freiberg. Justin, what's going on, man? How you feeling tonight?
Pretty good. You know, it's Wednesday. There's soccer on tonight. Well, the CCL is on at 10:30, which is kind of for the why the name this week, because apparently he's going to be at the second leg next week, which I still can't believe there's two legs of CCL. But you know, hey, we get to talk a little Union soccer and a few other soccer related topics. So I'm always game.
Soccer is the one sport that never ends, man. That's why we love it so freaking much. Absolutely. And then, of course, we got our man, Tim Lovingooths, rocking or sporting the new Sport Serotonin kit. Look at that bad boy. What's happening, Tim?
Not much, man. I'm excited to be back on the podcast. Finally getting over whatever little bit of sickness I had. Hopefully, I don't know what's going on with me. It's been like a month and a half. Hey, but we're here. We're going to talk about soccer. We're keeping the vibes up. Union still in first place, even after a draw that even Jim Curtin called boring. So, you know, we'll get into it. We'll talk about it. And, yeah, we're going to have a fun time.
Absolutely. No, Tim was not in the Anthony Fontana doghouse. We were allowing him to get right and ready so he can come back on the pod and drop that knowledge that he always does. So it's good to have Tim back. Zach, wherever you're at, we miss you, buddy. It's not the same without you.
He's at training. He's got a coach. Yeah, that's what he's doing right now, probably.
That man literally eats, breathes, sleeps the game of soccer. That's why we love him here. Absolutely. All right, so I want to get to some quick tidbits here before we dive into the recap and the preview. Tim, I'm going to throw this first topic at you. This is kind of a big deal. Hindsight 2020. Jack McGlynn has signed on with an agency group, Rock Nation. I mean, if you do not know what Rock Nation is, one of the best rappers of all time, Jay-Z started this company, and he's had some of the biggest American pro athletes on there. You know, I think in Philadelphia, Danny Green is part of that. Precious Achua, who we're going to play tomorrow night as well in there. Some global soccer star, Romelu Lukaku, part of Rock Nation. This is the first Major League Soccer player to sign on with Rock Nation, so this is quite a bit of a big deal. And we've talked about it before, Tim. His departure from Philly is inevitable within the next couple of seasons, and this is big for him, right?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be. I mean, you know, I don't think they really just sign anybody. And we've seen from McGlynn, when he actually gets on the field, he's a baller. I mean, he's going to control the midfield. His passes are just so clean. And then he can hit a PK. And he's got ice in his veins, which we saw in the playoffs last year. Like, you know, I don't know what teenager, like, in a conference semifinal goes over and asks his coach to take a PK. Like, that takes some cojones there. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big deal to have, you know, a Union player and a young guy who's you know, has a bright future for American soccer signed with Rock Nation. I think it's really cool. It's probably the first of many, I would assume, as well, throughout MLS and just American soccer in general.
Absolutely. Continues bringing light to this great league. More young players signing on to European clubs. And for Jack McGlynn, that time will come. Union already sold a couple already. So it's inevitable that Jack is on his way out as well. So congratulations, Jack McGlynn. Definitely dope to see Jay-Z and Jack McGlynn. It's pretty crazy. Definitely pretty crazy to think about. But the other bit of tidbit that I wanted to throw to you, Justin. So we just got the announcement of the U.S. Open Cup. The Union actually drew with Orlando City in that draw there, and it appears as if they will play on Tuesday, May 10th, down in Orlando, a 7 p.m. kickoff. Justin, I want to get your match, but also it makes the schedule very daunting for the Union. In the month of May, in 28 days, these guys are going to be playing 7 matches, a lot of travel time within there as well. I guess your concerns or your thoughts over this the schedule that we have here in May coming up.
I mean, I think it was inevitable given the time constraint with a Winter World Cup. No Leagues Cup that has been pushed back to 2023 with the new setup. But I mean, you had the Open Cup back, and the Open Cup, I mean, you were gonna play 6 games anyway, and you had the bye, so you were one of the few, 3, Eastern Conference sides that had the bye, so you were bound to play it. It's a weird window because you travel this week to Nashville, then a week later you're in LA. You don't even come back to Philly. They're going right to Orlando and then coming home for 2 games against Red Bull and Inter Miami, and then they're in Portland and New England at the end of the month. So
and in between that, they could also have the next round of the Open Cup on the midweek there.
Is it going to be that
May
tight?
May 25th or 26th is the round of 16.
Wow, because they play the 28th against the. So you can have 8 games. So listen, I think it's going to test their squad depth. I think that's something that Jim Curtin has praised, and it's something that we'll see how it is. Yeah. I think, given initially Orlando felt like a concerning matchup, and I still think they'll be tough. I mean, Facundo Torres seems like he's starting to be the real deal. Erkin Kara is definitely a Daryl DK like replacement, and even doing a little bit better than DK was at the time. But we did just watch. I did watch them lose 3-0 to Red Bull, and Red Bull picked them apart. And we remember the Union play a similar style, so I have a pretty positive, mindset of that matchup. So we'll see. I mean, you're on the road for 3 straight games, 2 league games and an Open Cup game, and then you come home for 2 games, and then you're on the road for 2, maybe 3 games. So May's kind of a weird month in terms of compactness, but after that, it kind of spreads out a little more. You're talking about really like once a week. So at this point, you were going to expect, with the way that the schedule is set up, there'd be some early seasons. I mean, especially when you think about teams that have played in Champions League. A lot of teams this point in the season have had a compact schedule to start, and eventually about midway the season when things start to level out. So I think Jim knows that they're going into a bit of a tough situation. So I think you'll see squad rotation mainly because you're not trying to run your veterans into the ground.
I just want to remind people, give everyone the heads up, because I know how my Union fans can work. Listen, they may go in a little bit of a slump in the 7 matches that they have in May. It's a possibility, and it's okay. It's a long season. I want to give you guys a heads up.
Nope, Johnny. Time to freak out. Hashtag close the curtain. Let's get through all the hashtags. Let's get it out of the way so that when it doesn't happen, we'll be good.
We'll get to that in a second because I already got the comments. Uwa has not been living up to the expectations. But hey, hold that.
Already.
You already know how Philly works. But gentlemen, let's get to our match this past Saturday. Obviously, we welcome Club de Foot Montreal into Subaru Park in an afternoon match there. And look, we always know when it comes to Montreal, it is always going to be a tough one. In this matchup, first to start off, the lineup, no changes as per usual, the same usual 11. And to start off, the Union definitely put the foot on the gas pedal, a couple nice opportunities. And then for the Union, around like the 19th minute or so, off of a great first it started off from a great challenge from Mikael Ua at midfield, creating the counter attack. He gets the ball to Leon to Ua. Ua finds Gazak running close to the final third, and then great communication between Carranza and Gazdak. Carranza leads the way, and Gazak with a great pass, and then Carranza challenges Kamal Miller and shoulder to shoulder falls in the box, which leads to a penalty kick in which Carranza would nail his third goal of the season off of a PK and got the Union up early 1-0. In the second half, for Montreal, they made it a substitution at the beginning of second half. They put in Kai Kamar in there for Ibrahim. And the tactic changed yet again a little bit. Wilfred Nancy got very creative throughout the match, making adjustments with his tactics. We saw Kai Kamara move centrally, and you saw Romelu Kyoto moving out wide. And with Kai Kamara, you know that body, you know that soccer IQ that he has, challenged that back line. And of course, 59th minute, he really challenged our best center back, Jakob Glesnes. And this was a great pass by Romelu Kyoto. And give credit to Kai Kamara. Got to step up on Jakob Glesnes. That's bound to happen. And a great touch on the ball. Gets it past Andre Blake. Not much you could do there. And it was drawn up 1-1. Montreal really had a really good second half. And for the Philadelphia Union, they just could not get one more goal. So Philly and Montreal split points, point each. And that's how that match would end. And we would get a win and a draw in the season series against Montreal for now. But there is some concern from Union Nation, and we'll get to that in a second. But I think predominantly what these fans are mostly worried about is the attack. Still pretty early. Not a lot of goals are falling, though, and they are getting some opportunities. So I'm going to start off with Justin here because I know Justin is fuming at the bit here. What is the concern now with the attack? I feel like we talked about this last week as well.
I'm not concerned, and I think Tim will know why we talked about it at length during the game, and it's simply to the fact that you're like three games into the Gazdag, Ua, Carranza connection really kind of taking form, and that was no more apparent than on a few occasions that Gazdag, would look up and Uwa would be making the perfect run, and the pass was just a fraction off, a little behind, hits defender. I think the connection between Gazdag and Carranza is definitely there, and it led to the PK, which. Let's get that one thing straight. That PK was Kamal Miller decking Julian Carranza. I mean, there was no question that was a PK, although our buddy and Sporting Serotonin teammate, Zach Richmond, was working the VAR booth, and all he said was Victor Wanyama was complaining a lot. So it was funny to listen, but I think the reason I'm not worried is we're 8 games into a season. Like, God, you still have 26 league games. You have how many Open Cup games? You have,
hopefully
several
more than one.
breaks. Yeah, like, and Mikael Ua is still showing. I mean, he still had several good chances. It is very clear that he is the striker that they've been looking for. The goals will come. But also the fact that you have Carranza already now at 3 goals. And, how many assists that he has to this point in the season. Gazdag at 4 goals. You're not a team that's going to be blowing teams out of the water 3 and 4 goals. the Union have honestly built themselves on a team that can ride out a 2-0 or a 2-1 game. They know how to make their chances well. So I'm still not concerned. And for all those fans who are already on the Uwaza bust, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Just shut the fuck up. It is 8 games into a season. I do not have time to be dealing with your bullshit. It is too early. It is too early, and I ain't got time for that shit.
Ain't got time for none of that. I love the way you put that, man. Absolutely. Tim, I'll throw it to you too, man. Look, and the one thing I'll mention as well. The first half, I thought the high press that they put on Montreal was suffocating, and I thought it was great. And obviously, pressuring at midfield, which led to the penalty kick opportunity in the first half as well for that first goal, was great. So for you, like, is it just a matter of just finishing, or is there something you're seeing that is that something that's just not unlocking in the attack?
I mean, it's mostly the finishing.
Okay.
If something that's not really unlocking, it's what Justin said in that Carranza and Gazdag have played 3 matches together, or started 3 matches together, I should say. So you can definitely tell they're getting close to being on the same page. I'm sure at training they're working a lot in their little triangles and passing movement type of things like that, and it just hasn't come off in the games yet. But it also kind of has, like against Toronto, the combination was Gazdag to Ua to Carranza for a goal that gave them the early lead. They couldn't hold on to it, which that's a different story. Same thing sort of with the game in Montreal. They couldn't really hold on to it. So I'm not necessarily worried about the attack now. If they go through this long stretch of games and it's consistently those 3, and they're still, not scoring, maybe 2, a bunch of goals, I should say. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, like, because how do you quantify it? Like, you want to see them scoring, obviously, because they're the 2 strikers up top. But like Carranza has been scoring, Gazdag has been scoring. I know he hasn't scored in a few games, but he's still the team's leading scorer with 4. Carranza has 3. Santos off injured again, maybe, sort of. Who knows what's going on with him again? Corey Burke has 2. Like, and then Ua just is finding his feet. And I think for him, it's really, once he finds that first goal, I think he's going to get more. He's going to have the confidence. We've seen sort of on the direct runs where he gets played in behind, like he'll have a good shot, it'll be a good save, or he might miss by just a little bit. And if one of those go in, he's going to score more. Like, he's that type of player. He's that type of striker, someone the Union really haven't had. So, I understand why fans are upset, because this guy was talked up as being like a true goal scorer, and he's played 3 games or started 3 games. He hasn't scored yet. What's going on? And now the Union haven't won in 2 games. And I guess Union fans are now used to the team only winning, which, go back to a few years ago, and that was not the case at all. So this stretch it's going to be telling, and we'll talk a lot about it. But I mean, the attack not necessarily clicking against Montreal. Yeah, it stinks, and Jim Curtin said it too, and I alluded to it earlier. Like, he didn't like this game. He thought it was boring in the second half because the attack just was off, like a half step off on some of those passes and some of the connections. So it's it's a work in progress. But I'm with Justin, though. I'm not necessarily worried about the attack. I think for Ua especially, once he gets a goal, he's going to get more, and he's going to show why the Union paid all that money for him.
Absolutely. Look, obviously right now in Austin, they're all going crazy now. It's Soccer City USA 2022, right? And Sebastian Drusi comes in the league and he's like on fire, and I think a lot of Union fans are expecting that to happen. But I do agree. Give it some time, guys. It doesn't always happen that quickly. But you see the skill, you see the talent, you see what those 3 are slowly starting to build. Take some. You got to trust the process, guys, and I think that'll be fine. However, though, one point I wanted to bring to tonight's show, because we talked about it in the recap, and I do think that this is something that we should keep an eye out on. So what I'm going to share right now, guys, this is from MLSsoccer.com. This is the passing network chart from Saturday's game. Now, as you guys can tell, the right side of the attack got a lot of work, right? From Glesnes, Harriel, Ali, and Brujo, Gazdak, Carranza. It got a lot of work on Saturday. But when you notice on the other side, guys, not so much traffic going through that side. And look, Kai and Leon, we talked about it when we actually interviewed Leon. The chemistry those guys have, and we've seen it before, didn't link up at all. And the play that I keep rewinding in my head was the first clear opportunity when Gazak threads the needle to a wide open Leon Flock, and Uwak gets a great run into the box, and Flock just misses the pass completely. Carranza and Uwa, regardless of the amount of goals they're not putting up, are still causing a lot of troubles for back lines. But I did see Leon have a lot of clear runs. Could that possibly be a weakness that some good teams like, look, we're going to face up against a good defensive side in Nashville? Could that be a concern for you guys? I'll throw this to you, Justin. What do you think, man?
I don't know necessarily if it's a concern. I mean, I think we've been honest in saying that Leon's offensive game
something good here too, guys.
Has definitely needed to really change. And Mike brings up a good point. And I was reading an article on Philly Soccer page that was basically, should we be giving Jack McGlynn the starts at that left shoulder over Leon? And at this point, I wonder if maybe even for a game, you throw Jack in there. And because Jack is the better passer, the better option going forward. And now I think Ali for Quinn could be an option, I think, in terms of giving him rest. But in terms of really having that ability to get better passing, at least in through, your shuttlers, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Jim throws McGlynn in there. I mean, he said it. That second half was the most boring soccer he's seen. And I think if you want to throw, mix things up a little, I think throwing Jack McGlynn would suffice pretty well. So I think there's a reason for concern in terms of your attack, but I don't think a team like Nashville is really going to exploit that. They're a possession team, and they're a team that still really relies on Hani Mukhtar. And I think having Brujo on top of him or whoever on top of him is still possible, and you can still shut him down while still having something going forward. So I'm not too concerned about a team exploiting that connection. It's really more about what either player would bring given moving forward, and that's where I think Jack McGlynn might suffice a little better.
Absolutely, and this is another good point by Mike. Is it possible Uwa playing too far out wide? I feel like he just can't find a good angle coming off the flank, and may have more success if he can get more central. Tim,
I don't know. He was making some good runs from out wide. The passes were just not there. Like they were just not connecting. So he's making the solid run. Like he's coming in wide, but making those runs in curving centrally, compared to Sergio, who makes the kind of opposite type run. So I think his positioning isn't really the issue. It's the passes getting to him seem to be the issue.
Tim, any thoughts on what we just discussed?
Yeah. So the passing chart, the first thing I want to say about that is the left side with Leon, that is the question. If you put McGlynn in there, you're obviously going to maybe work the ball a little bit more left when you have it. However, this is the 2022 Philadelphia Union. They could give a shit about passing. They don't care about passing the ball and holding the ball. Their passes are quick and direct and over the top pretty much all the time now, which over the top part I don't like as much. I think they can be more direct, playing through balls on the ground to the strikers, but that's their game plan. So that the passing chart doesn't really bother me. They've had the least completed amount of passes any team or whatever. I saw that stat.
Was it like 66% or something like?
Yeah, the 2018 Red Bull team was like on the list of teams there, and they won the Supporter Shield doing the same thing. So the way that they're passing doesn't really matter, but I kind of agree that if you put Jack McGlynn in there, it might be a little bit more balanced in terms of when there's an outlet kind of deeper in the midfield on the left side, instead of just looking to play a ball over the top to Ua. They could have McGlynn as a better outlet just because they trust him more to find than the next pass, which will still be a pretty quick direct pass, probably to Ua or to Carranza or Gazdag, but he's just better on the ball than Leon. And we know that the only risk you take then is the defensive cover, because we saw when McGlynn got subbed in right away, Montreal tried to run at his side, and I love Jack McGlynn, but he's not as fast as Leon, that's for sure.
Well, I think running after Jordy or Romo Kyoto is a bad look for anyone, but I think Tim to build on that passing percentage. I had this argument with a few Union fans. They're like, "Oh God, this passing percentage is so terrible," blah blah blah. And I literally said, like teams that have like Columbus, teams that have a higher passing percentage doesn't equate to like better offensive output. It just means you're connecting more shorter passes. The Union are making these long passes. The problem that the chart shows, and I think it's the problem that we've talked about, is that left-hand side, Kai essentially is having to ping the ball all the way up instead of being able to give it to someone, obviously it would be Leon, but if he gives it to Jack and Jack can turn up and either give it to Gazdag or throw it up to Ua without having to force Kai into that long pass. So while the chart does show that, the percentage, as Jim could probably say, could probably give a damn, because if you're winning games, like you said, the Union style is not pretty. It ain't winning an Oscar for Best Picture anytime soon. But at the end of the day, defense wins championships, and so far the Union defense is still holding up pretty well.
This is Philadelphia. We like good defense here, ladies and gentlemen. Come on now. Oh man. One more point. I agree with Tim. This is not the Barcelona or the Saudi ball. This isn't ticky-tack. This isn't heavy possession. And I agree with that. I don't care how the Union get down to the final third. You just get there no matter what. However, though, I do want them to convert those passes in the final third. And that is how I feel about that.
It comes with reps. It comes with time. It'll come.
I think that's the thing is Gazdag and Ua just like it's about that connection, about building it. It will come, because when it does come, with those runs that Ua is making, it's gonna be insane. It's gonna be crazy.
Wait till we get down in Subaru Park, man. And those goals are be coming at will. But this is actually pretty funny. Mike letting us know. I saw someone who wanted Burke to start, and allegedly they watched his disastrous sub on. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Corey Burke, you know what you get with him. He's gonna grind it out. He's gritty. And I mean, Mike is now talking about Carranza too. Like, he finds a way to make something happen, and
which makes sort of like Miami look bad.
Well, Miami has too many number 9s anyways, and they have one that's working really well for them right now, and his name's not Gonzalo Higuain, so we don't need to talk about
well, we'll talk about that when we play those guys, because I'm sure that's going to be a great topic conversation. This is a good point too, guys. Aronson, 2 minutes to play in the second half.
Yeah, the subs from Jimmy was questionable.
Yeah, that
when
one.
When you're 1-1.
For what was it for Carranza, right? He came out for
it was Ua.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it could have been earlier. Like, I have no problem with the sub, but like at 75 minutes, if things are like, you got to make that sub before the 80th minute.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the only thing. It wasn't the issue of the sub. It was you're subbing on the 88th minute at this point when Montreal is just going to bunker in for a point. The Union were still creating chances, but like, there's not a whole lot Paxton's going to do in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Honestly, I would love to see him get more of like the Bedoya role minutes. I know we were talking about Quinn Sullivan getting that, but Paxton can also kind of drop in there. Obviously, it's more of an attacking-minded substitution. So you're
Yeah,
playing with a very attack-minded 8, sort of like a Georgi Mihailovic, because he's more of an
yeah.
8 than a 10 for me. But yeah, I think that could be a spot where we could possibly see more Aronson. And how we were talking about more McGlynn too, like these guys and Quinn Sullivan and even some of the guys, maybe like a Jesus Bueno, like they're gonna be called upon in May. That like Jim cannot run the same 4 midfielders into the ground for 8 games, because then when the calendar turns to the summer months and like Justin said, it's 1 week or 1 game a week, they're just going to be burnt out and tired, and it's hot. Like you have to rotate, and the Union have good midfielders that you can rotate and get good results with. You can still win with. So hopefully we get to see a little bit more of that.
I agree. And you have the depth for a reason. So just use it. Absolutely. And you guys know me. I'm still dying on that hill that I like Quinn Sullivan more as a forward. I know he's a
Yes.
Swiss Army knife. But like in that instance, like in that 88th minute, obviously a sub should have come out a little bit earlier than that. But I like Quinn coming in for Ua over for Paxton Aarons. I feel like Paxton, just keep him at the 10. Like he's so good at that role, and the creativity that he has at that age is just remarkable. And Mike, realistically, he believes that Flock is actually 6 and not an 8, even though he can play both.
I think his words on our own podcast kind of says why he fits in the 8 with the Union. But
yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's that's all you got to point back to is his own words is that he is a 6, but in this system he's an 8.
He's a defensive-minded 8. Yeah.
Believe in yourself. I absolutely agree with that. It feels like this position is like the right back position last year. You had Olivier, right? Olivier Biza, more of an attacking minded fullback, whereas Alvis Powell was more of a defensive minded fullback. And now this year you got Jack defense. I'm sorry, you got Jack attack, and you got Leon with the defense. And we don't know what the heck to pick or put out there, or who to select, but it'll definitely come with time. And Jim's already shown he's not scared. If he feels as if that you're not producing to what we need, he will make a change, a la Harriel over Mbizo. So it'll definitely come to fruition. But one last point I wanted to discuss before we head into Nashville. This is back-to-back matches where I feel the Union didn't fail to play a complete 90 minutes. In the Toronto match, I felt like Toronto got the edge in that second half, and I felt the same way in Montreal. It's just is this just some early season chips? What are we attributing this to?
Yeah, I think this one was again another thing of you missed on a few chances, and Montreal hits on
their
a chance. I mean, that easily, if Kai Kamara's a half step behind, Glesnes closes that out, and it's not a chance. So it really, it's unfortunately, with as well as the Union defense has been playing, it's just like seconds, like not even seconds. It's just like a brief, switch, and it's unfortunate, but I think the team will settle in. I'm not, being 5 wins, 1 loss, and 2 draws through 8 games. Like, okay, the recent form is a little tougher, but you're also now settling into the meat of your season. So I think you just gotta, with everything, patience is key.
Patience is key, my friend. Absolutely.
It's still the best start in team history. And I will say just about the Montreal match really quickly. It was very similar to the game the Union played against Columbus. Like they were gifted the goal against Columbus, and they had a bunch of chances that they didn't convert, but Columbus missed on theirs, or Blake saved them and bailed them out. And Montreal have one big chance in this game. It was the goal they scored. Their expected goals was 0.47, but they scored on the one chance that they had from Kai Kamara. So this could have easily been another gritty 1-0 win. Unfortunately, it wasn't, but the draw and the way that it happened isn't the worst in the world. And I think it is like what Justin's saying. It's still early season. You're trying to figure it out. They're still creating chances, and eventually they're going to go in. Like they're going to go in. They have to. That is the way this team plays.
Absolutely. I agree with you. It'll come with time, but you can't always rely. As good as his defense is as well, you can't always rely on that for sure. Union are at their best when Kai's overlapping Flock. I would tend to agree with that. With
I would
Flock,
agree, but I think with Leon bringing not much going forward, it wouldn't hurt to potentially switch things up.
You could
absolutely.
still have Kai overlapping with McGlynn, and then it's actually more dangerous because if McGlynn's forward, he's a better passer than Leon. So you could even have more underlapping runs for McGlynn. And
Look at Tim. Look at
it works.
Tim. I like that, dude. You got me excited. I like that. Saludos to our friend Don Rafael saying hello. Justin, I wonder how people who don't tune in regularly when they read your names are wondering like, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
I think if they listen, I think if they tune into our intro, that's why I'm Captain Nickname, man. I listen, that's what I gotta bring. That my hot takes.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, like Mike says, first place in the East.
First place, it's not the worst thing in the world.
But we should not be complacent because a lot of work is yet to be done.
Red Bull's there. They're coming.
Yeah,
I think they're good this year.
They got that energy drink in them this year. That's for sure. They stop.
Just like in most games, second half they'll slow down.
Hey, I like it. The early trash talk. All right. Well, speaking of trash talk and some bad blood, gentlemen, it's Nashville time. We're going to help them open up Geodis.
Geodis?
Geodis, I think.
I'm gonna go with Geodis.
Geodis Park. So brand new
that's
stadium. Brand new stadium for Nashville is obviously going to be very, very exciting. So it's going to be a big one. So without further ado, guys, we do have an interview with you guys from Drake Hills of the Tennessean, a beat writer down there. He's had some great insight. He was unable to make the episode, but we had a pre-recording. We had some great insight that we're going to show to you now. So without further ado, we're now going to get to the interview with Drake Hills. Let's get it, guys. All right, Duperos y Duperas now joining us live on the Doop by the River guest line to help us prepare for our upcoming match against Nashville Soccer Club. Please welcome from the Tennessean, Drake Hills. Drake, what is going on, my man? How you feeling here today?
Yeah, what's good? Yeah, thanks for having me on. It is a week that, man, I know a couple of writers across the country can relate to. Austin, Cincinnati, Columbus, LA a few years back, Minnesota, if you want to go that far back. Being in a market where you're opening a stadium that week is a hectic one. So that's exactly what I'm experiencing right now. But it's all good. Sunday is going to be a good one.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited as well. One thing I did want to ask you for sure before we dive into it, I want people to know kind of who you are. Obviously, you're in Philadelphia. They may not be familiar with the writers and reporters of Nashville SC. So kind of talk about a little of yourself there, Drake.
Yeah, of course. So I've been at the Tennessean for 3 years, covering Nashville SC's MLS era and actually the end of its USL era, where they were playing their games in a outfield of a baseball park of the Milwaukee Brewers AAA affiliate, the Nashville Sounds. So what was first Tennessee Park, now First Horizon Park, they were playing obviously Charleston Batteries, the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, those types of teams in the USL Eastern Conference. But yeah, I've been covering Nashville and MLS. I even cover the national team, and I actually have been up there to Chester to go to Subaru Park. So I was there for the playoff game last November, which I really enjoyed. That was probably my most favorite city that I traveled to so far on the beat, and not just the soccer culture in the city, but even just being around downtown. I stayed at I believe that was the Hilton.
Okay.
Really enjoyed the city, man. I did a lot of sightseeing, but yeah, man, I've been in Phoenix before I got to Nashville. I was covering Phoenix Rising USL.
Look at that.
Before that, I was in Chicago covering the Red Stars and NWSL, as well as some Fire and a little bit of local soccer as well as a freelancer. But I'm coming from San Diego, which is where I'm from. So a little bit of a polar opposite of a culture. I have a little bit of Southern ties in Georgia and Louisiana, but I'm a really San Diego guy at heart. Grew up there for the majority of my life, so I grew up going to the Chivas games, RIP.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Chivas USA in there.
All the way back to a young Brad Guzan coming out of the Super Draft.
Jim Curtin, did you see Jimmy in Chivas?
I was too young for the Jim Curtin era, but
okay.
yeah. So Brad Guzan. Gosh, I'm really blanking on some guys right now. Even Talia, another keeper who came in a little bit later. Yeah, so I grew up going to Chivas games, some Galaxy games, but never rooted for the Galaxy. So yeah, yeah. So that's my path. But yeah, Nashville's just really grown even since I got here. If you take a look at, obviously, we're gonna have a big stadium to open I think it's about Nashville. It's not just about Nashville SC. If you're a part of the soccer culture here, you know, this team, when they were founded in 2014, they played in NPSL at Vanderbilt's football stadium, you know, when there was only a couple of hundred people showing up to games. So now with having a 30,000 seat soccer specific stadium, that is a long way for a lot of fans and a lot of people that live in this city a lot longer than I have. So it's coming full circle for everybody.
Absolutely. I love the promotion relegation path you've taken to where you're at now. We definitely love it, man. That is really
hopefully
awesome.
I don't get relegated.
We hope so too, Drake. We hope we don't either. But to the point you just mentioned, that's kind of where I wanted to start off this discussion with Philly and Nashville. Look, big week, Geodis Park opening up for you guys. But also too, you know, we did knock you out in the playoffs last year. So a little bit of a revenge for Nashville as well. And then obviously the new ownership, you know, Reese Witherspoon and you get Derrick Henry, NFL star in Nashville as well. So what's the vibe right now in Nashville? So it's always lively in Nashville. We all know that, but this is a big week for its soccer image.
Yeah, for the Tennessean, which is, you know, obviously, as you mentioned, the newspaper that I write for, you know, we've witnessed over the past couple of weeks a lot of the on-field Nashville SC stuff. Of course, it will gain a little bit of traction. There's always conversation around any winning streaks, any losing streaks, like Nashville had to endure at the end of or in the middle of March going into the international break. But it's really been dominated by not just the stadium, but as you mentioned, Derrick Henry and Reese Witherspoon and her husband, Tim Hoth, coming in as minority owners. But on top of that, you've got new food partners. You've got soccer pitches being built around a lot of the diverse neighborhoods, a lot of the black and brown neighborhoods in inner city Nashville. You've got so much going on. Obviously, a training facility is still ongoing in the process as they're trying to build their own training facility. So much is going on in terms of development, in terms of community marketing, where, like you said, there's always a vibe in Nashville, but I think it's a more of a party type vibe as opposed to so much about the soccer, which is definitely fitting for what's going on this spring.
Absolutely. I will say, and I think I speak for most here in Philadelphia, we are a little bit happy that Nashville's in the Western Conference. We really had a lot of fits when it came to Nashville. They really played us tough throughout all the matches that we've played against you guys, all three of them. So we're a little happy you guys over there. I'm sure your guys not enjoying it with the time zone difference and some tough opponents out in the West as well, man.
Yeah, that is something that with Nashville covering this team, it has been quite interesting to see how they respond to giving up the ball or how they respond to going up against some of the best players of that team, how they respond to the way the game flow goes on throughout. I mean, if you take a look at games against Minnesota United in early March, they end up giving a set piece goal up at the end of the game to basically split points with Minnesota. And if you take a look at how that game transpired, you had a lightning delay that pretty much took out, I believe it was about 45 minutes. And before that, Nashville basically had the momentum of the entire game playing on the road. They split points there. They give up really two bad goals against Dallas, the next week. And then the week following, they go to the Real Salt Lake and Bobby Wood, gets a goal off of a easy set piece. And I just think the dynamic of the way the game has gone is a little bit different. And then, of course, 18,000 miles for 8 games. That is something that if you're going from Nashville to Seattle in the first game of the season, And then in April you've got 2 California trips, one to San Jose and one to LA. That is taxing on any team. So I think it's been quite interesting to see those matchups, and teams like Galaxy, teams like the Sounders, Kansas City, a little more technical, a little more sharp on the ball. I think not as gritty as a game that we will likely see between Philly and Nashville. We obviously remember the Jose Martinez Hani Mukhtar battle at the end of the first half in the playoff game that really carried over. I think the supporters up there at Subaru Park let Hani hear it for pretty much the entire second half.
Yeah.
And then, of course, taking penalties, I believe, in that direction. I was there for that game, as I mentioned. I believe it was the PKs were taken behind the supporters. I could be incorrect on that. But
yes, yeah.
that environment, I think you will see it flipped and have the backline collective, as they're called in Nashville, the multiple supporter groups coming together, having that atmosphere flipped. I think that's what we'll see on Sunday.
Absolutely. And to your point, look, you guys gave us a bunch of challenges in that Eastern Conference semifinal game, but I kind of want to look at this year. And you touched upon the travel frustrations and playing in the Western Conference as well. But what has been the main challenge from this year to last? From this year to last year. When I watch you guys, obviously it's been an up and down season. You guys do seem like you're looking for that consistency, especially last year when I watched you guys, the defensive structure, discipline, and you guys played so much as a team. Of course, led by Hani Mukhtar. What has been the challenge, though?
Yeah, well, I think you answer, I think, your own question there is just the consistency. And Gary Smith, the coach, has for this Nashville group has been very clear on that, basically separating this Nashville group from last year. Obviously, the goals that they've conceded, I don't think that conceding 9 and 8 games is what Nashville has been known for the past couple of seasons. But again, there's always an asterisk next to what Nashville's faults have been. And so playing on the road, I think those things will happen. We haven't seen the goal scoring Hani Mukhtar that we saw last year. If you take a look at how he's come about, he just got his first couple of goals against San Jose a couple of weeks ago, and so this may well be the time now, getting a slew of home games where we can see that Hani scoring goals once again. I think another thing is obviously there's no Alistair Johnston as your whether it be your right back in a back four or your wing back in a 3-back system. And so it's a little bit different. But again, you can't really take a look at this Nashville team and say this is truly who they are without a balanced schedule. That's just the fact of the matter. And I think once we get closer to, let's say, Memorial Day or even into June, when this team is on a more balanced schedule, then us in the media will be able to take a look at this Nashville side and say, this is the 2022 Nashville.
Now, has Alex Mule kind of replaced Alistair?
Absolutely. Alex Mule is actually probably one of the most underrated players on this team.
Okay.
If we take a look at a guy who's not going to be atop of the stat sheet in any category except total distance covered, probably tackles 1, duels 1, total distance per 90, those type of high work rate, pestering type of stat lines. He's not going to give you the goals. He's not going to give you the assists. But the way he plays for this team gives a lot of flexibility for that spot, because as of right now, the only other option is Eric Miller coming off the bench, who is more of a traditional right back than Alex is more of your wing back hybrid winger. So he's done a great job, I think, based off of defending and certainly being able to progress. And Nashville doesn't play the way they did against Columbus in Columbus without Alex Muyl. So I definitely think he's been a good replacement for Alistair, but obviously not a potential goal threat necessarily.
Absolutely. I want to continue on the attack here because obviously defensively, I still think you guys are a really, really solid team. But when I look at you guys on the attack, I really like your shuttle midfielders. Obviously, Sean Davis and Randall Leal doing a great job of manning those positions. Is Mukhtar playing more as that second forward this season? Is what I first wanted to ask you there.
Well, he actually started that last year where
Okay.
at the beginning of the season, Nashville didn't start in that 3-4-3 shape. They actually continued into Gary Smith's conventional 4-2-3-1 with Hani basically as a traditional 10, something that he was very used to playing with Brøndby back in Denmark before he came to Nashville. But the three-man weave, as I've liked to call them since basically the middle of last year, which allowed it would seem as they begin to build in possession, where you have Mukhtar and Leal basically surrounding and interchanging with CJ Sapong up front. It started to become, to your question, Hani Mukhtar basically playing as a second striker off of CJ with Randall Leal tucking in, kind of basically under and behind those two. And I think, but this year it's slightly a little bit different. You've seen Randall Leal back to his normal ways in more wide areas, but it is very similar to what last season. And to your point, you mentioned Sean Davis. I think that gives a little bit more flexibility to Randall as they're basically playing on the same side. Randall will usually start on the left. Sean Davis sometimes has started on the left side of that midfield. We've seen a midfield three with Davis, McCarty, and Godoy, especially at the beginning of this season. We've also seen that basically two-man tandem. Recently, it's been Davis and Godoy. So I think when you see what will probably happen against Philadelphia, you'll probably see Randall Leal back to his ways of maybe tucking under Hani and CJ as the front two.
All right, that should be very interesting to see. Another question I wanted to ask you a bit about this attack. I do feel like more goals could be scored for Nashville. To you, is it a concern? And what could this Nashville team do to get more goals on these score sheets?
Just got to finish. I think that's a pretty easy answer there. Just because of the chances that they're creating. If I could go back to the top of my head, I think the game against LA, I think Randall had a decent chance, but that was probably closer to the unsuccessful performance that they had against Dallas. But if you go to San Jose, I think that should have been, 3-4 goals. If you go even further back, Kansas City again was tough. I think there could have been a 3-goal game as well. So I think it's about finishing chances, and you can't rely on Hani as the only guy. I think Randall needs to score as well.
This kind of sounds like us, man. We're kind of in the same boat there as well. All right, so what could this potential lineup and formation look like for Nashville on Sunday?
I don't think there will be much of a change. Your typical 3-4-3. You'll have Zimmerman as your mid center back in the middle of a three with Dave Romney and Jack Mayer. Obviously Joe Willis in goal, but I think what will be interesting to see, if anything, is Dax McCarty getting his start. He's been coming off the bench. He didn't play against LA because he and his wife welcomed their second child, baby Owen, and another son. So he was not available for that trip. But even before that, he came off the bench against San Jose, which was his first game back after the 2-game suspension. And then you've got, so it'll be a question if he starts with Godoy and Davis. Will all three of them start? Will only 2 of them start? And I think, of course, Dan Lovitz will be the wingback on one side, Alex Muyl on the other. And then you've got Leal, Mukhtar, and Sapong up front.
Okay. Before we get to some predictions, some other questions here. What do you see happening with this matchup with Mukhtar and Brujo Martinez? Like, there's been a lot of love for Brujo. Jim Curtin even coming out in presser saying he is the best number 6 in the league. So there's been a lot of love for him. But like you mentioned, that was a heated matchup last year.
Yeah, well, and I say that because that was definitely in the moment. I believe that was what playoff professional sports If you go watch the NBA playoffs, you see the same thing. NHL playoffs, same thing. MLS Cup playoffs is no
That's what makes
different.
it great.
Right. I mean, how bad do you want it? So, and especially if I were to be in Jim Curtin's locker room that November night, or even that entire week, they were definitely king on Hani because 18 goals in the regular season, 12 assists. A guy like that, second in the MLS MVP voting, you're going to make sure you're putting your best defensive players on him. And I'm sure, Leon Flock was very busy with CJ Sapong. So someone's got to step up to the plate. I think we'll leave it at that. I think, and it won't be the only matchup as well. I think there'll be CJ going up against those big center backs, Randall Leal as well. And he's a guy who will stand up. He's small in stature, but he's willing to talk his own if you rough him up a little bit. So I mean, it's two teams that are tough, two teams that are well coached, well organized, that attack off the counter. They like to find goals that way, and I'm sure just as much as Curtin will be looking at Hani and Sapong and Leal, I think Gary will be saying, hey, we got this Julian Carranza guy who is basically redeeming himself, and I know Ura is a DP, so I think there's a lot of guys that Gary will be telling his team about to be ready for this game.
Absolutely. I mean, look, in this league, there's a lot of quality number 10s. And for Brujo, he's got to go up against quality number 10 after he just went up against Mihalovic. Posuelo is the week prior, and now he's got to go up against Mukhtar. And that's what makes him so great, because he just takes the challenge and he grabs the bull by the horns. And it's going to be fun to watch again this week. And yeah, I'm ready for that Brøndby match. It's funny when Michael Uwa signed on with the Union in the press conference, he actually had some great words for Mukhtar. He actually talked to Mukhtar before his move here, because obviously they're still friends from the time at Brøndby, and It's great to see Mukhtar being a great ambassador of the league through that signing.
Absolutely
there. All right, so kind of want to tie in the last question here. What I want from you is, what does Nashville need to do on Sunday to win, and give us that final prediction?
Oh, well, first and foremost, definitely be wary of set pieces. No Shavilko anymore as Ura now. So I think that's maybe not a like for like, but Philly is just going to attack just as any other MLS team if they know they can get you that way. So defend soundly on set pieces, but also be direct and progressive with the ball in possession. Be ready to hit Philly on the counter. I think those are 3 points that, if Nashville can do that and take the advantage and the excitement, the organic motivation of playing at home for the first time this season, for the first time at Geodis Park, I think they will give themselves a pretty decent chance to go up against, if I can say, probably top 3 best teams in the league right now, just based off of the talent and the way Philly has been playing. But then again, Philly is going on the road, so it might be a pretty good matchup and an opportunity for Nashville to get that revenge.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, for all the Nashville fans, enjoy that opening. I was too young for the opening of what was back then PPL Park, but that's definitely going to be an exciting time. And just taking the moment. Those are the moments you're definitely going to take to the grave for you. Right. Absolutely, Drake. It was a pleasure, my man. I really appreciate you coming on here on such short notice on a big week for you guys as well. Where can people find the great Drake Hills, man?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, so Live Life Drake on Twitter. I'm always game for any questions, and Jonathan Tannenwald always brings me in, and every retweet, every quote tweet is always a Philly Union supporter who is always willing to engage with me and chat with me for a little bit, talk it up, talk soccer. So Live Life Drake on Twitter, Drake Hills Soccer on Instagram. I'll read all of our coverage, especially if you want to know anything and everything about the Geodis Park. Tennessean.com/sports/Nashville SC. It's all there.
Absolutely. We'll also tag those in the links as well. Drake, enjoy your time on Sunday, and thanks again, brother.
Thanks, man.
All right, guys, that was the interview with Drake Hill. Shouts out to Drake. Appreciate all the great insight on Nashville SC. Gentlemen, I'm going to start off by saying this. I'm a little worried about this match. I'm a little worried. Revenge is a real thing. Karma is a real thing as well. We all remember how their season ended last year in our happiness. But, there's going to be a lot of emotion on Sunday afternoon. They're opening their brand spanking new park, something they've been waiting for a long time. the emotions are going to be high for Nashville. That's why I'm concerned for this matchup this upcoming Sunday.
I'm not really concerned. I mean, listen, all you got to point to for stadium openings is FC Cincinnati opening up and allowing Breck Shea to score the first goal in
Why you got to do that,
PQL.
Cincinnati?
Listen, because I love the fact that Breck Shea is the first ever goal scorer in that stadium's history, and so I will consistently love to bring that up. I
As long as Zimmerman's not taking them, I think they'll or no, Mukhtar sailed one too. No,
Mukhtar went right to Andre Blake.
Godoy.
And Godoy got saved, and Moyle and Zimmerman skied theirs.
That's what it was.
But I think, listen, yeah, the Union are going to be on the road, but the emotions being high of opening a new stadium and all the fanfare, all it takes, he said, all it takes one set piece, one break and play where the Union just get going and smash and grab all 3 points, or grab an late equalizer. Like, as exciting as it will be, and yeah, they've been on the road. I was saying this before the show. Nashville is still Nashville. They are still heavily reliant on Mukhtar. They still, without Alistair Johnston, I really think they've lost one of their key things is being able to swing in those crosses. Alex Mule is great at getting up and down the field, but I don't really think he offers anything much going forward. As you say, it doesn't really offer anything on the stat sheet. And something the stat sheet is crosses into the box and assists. And it's hey, listen, Mike, I think Mike's gonna be there this weekend. I will take whatever angle. I'll put a little extra turtle wax on the head, a little blinding Joe Ellis. But no, I think really for all the emotion, I think Jim Curtin is just gonna say to the team, guys, it's just a game. Let's take the wind out of the sails of this stadium opening game. Like, he's just, how Jim Curtin, like, he keeps it simple, he keeps it concise, but he also delivers a definitive speech. And I think he's just gonna tell them, go out and play your game. It's coming. It's gonna happen. And so, no, I'm not really worried. It's a road game. They're tough, but the only difference in this is it's a stadium opener. That's the only difference between this and any other road game.
Did we win our stadium opener? Do you guys remember?
Yeah, I think they beat Seattle. I could be wrong.
I was just saying at PPL Park. God, I'm trying to remember back.
PPL Park. We love it, man. We know Mike Thomas has got plenty of baby oil, so he's going to pack it all up.
Mike, make sure it's under, was it 3.5 ounces? You're trying to get that through TSA?
Also, if you guys are heading down, make sure you guys find yourselves some Memphis pulled pork nachos. Those are the best type of nachos. So if you're around, I think the Luke Bryan bar has them as well. So definitely,
I'll have to ask. Morgan 10 and I are going to be meeting up with and I believe Mike might be with us. They're going to be meeting up with a friend of ours down in Nashville. I'm sure we'll ask him about some of the better food spots to hit up while we're out.
Some good food in Nashville. It's an underrated food city for sure. Tim, I want to ask you, man. Yeah. This matchup, I got this matchup stuck in my head, man. This Martinez and Mukhtar matchup again, man. It should be fun. And I wouldn't say that Abreu had bad matches. He didn't have bad matches the past two ones, but Mihailovic and Pozuelo's got some moments on him. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, it's gonna be another one of those ones, and I know Justin was talking about Jim Curtin giving like a speech. I wouldn't be surprised if Jim Curtin goes to Abreu and is like, listen, this is a new stadium for them. You got to make that crowd fucking hate you. Like, go out there and just kick him. Like, obviously try to win the ball. We need to get forward. We need to do all the things we need to do. But if the moment presents itself for you to go through Mukhtar to win the ball, and Brujo's up for that, like do it.
Quote Karate Kid, sweep the leg.
Like, seriously, like get the crowd going a little bit and make Nashville's players feel that intensity even more because like Justin was saying, like they'll feel that energy, but it's going to be a very nervous energy for them, especially with their start to the season. So I wouldn't be surprised, and maybe El Brujo doesn't really need his coach to tell him to do that. He'd probably do it anyways. But I think that's how that matchup's going to start. I mean, probably get a yellow card for it. Just don't do anything stupid. No studs to the knee. Don't get a red card. That kind of thing.
No. Studs to the knee are yellow cards. Don't you know? That's
only
for Toronto.
Listen, all El Brujo. Listen, El Brujo is just gonna. He's gonna give him the Nashville welcome. I don't know what that is. But
go figure it out.
Yeah, Brujo will create one. He'll create one.
Worst comes to worst, you could just go the Henry Kessler style and just fucking toss up a ball.
Oh my God! I swear, if someone does that, that is just at that point. Everyone should just start tweeting Revolution fans, be like, "Is this how you do it?
Did we do this right? How's our form looking?" Absolutely. All right, let's get to some. Lineup's not changing right for this one. Not yet, at least. We're definitely gonna get some lineup changes, but I don't know.
The only lineup change that I could picture, and I talked about it, would be maybe throwing in Jack McGlynn or Quinn.
You're going there.
I think so. I think like we said, Jim Curtin is not afraid to switch things up, to make changes, and as that passing map showed, Leon's not really bringing a lot going forward. So why not throw Jack McGlynn in there? The kid's got ice in his veins.
Yeah.
There's a reason. Listen, I honestly think he has some of the highest upside of any of the Union homegrowns besides maybe Nate Harriel. And which means I think he's going to be going fairly quickly. And why not put him on a nationally televised stage on a massive level, on a stadium opener, and go out and show Nashville how a Union homegrown does it.
That remember that. Remember what Justin just said, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm actually here for it. I don't think that's too far fetched, and it's not like Leon's been playing bad, kind of like a la what Olivier Bizo did. But yeah, I mean there is a lot left to be desired, especially on the attack, and that is definitely not far fetched to think, man. Tim, do you see any changes possibly?
I kind of agree with Justin, and I hope that Jim Curtin kind of sees that it might be time for a change there. And like you guys were saying, Leon Flock has not been bad. He's just a different type of player. And I think in these types of matches, like I was talking about the emotion. The emotion's going to be high. So you want someone like Leon on the bench to start the game for someone like Jack McGlynn to be in there. I think then you kind of switch the roles. You bring in Leon Flock around the 75th minute for either McGlynn or even El Brujo if he picked up that yellow card for taking out Mukhtar. I think that's more valuable, and I think it makes more sense because then you have a fresh Leon Flock coming in, and he can cover ground, and he can play very well defensively. So maybe you're hoping, all right, in the first 75 minutes, hopefully we get the lead. We bring in Leon Flock, get more defensive, minded in the midfield, and just kind of close the game out, type of thing. That's really the only change I could see, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same 11 though, because they haven't won a game in the last few with this 11, but it's still what Curtin probably thinks is the best 11. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's that for this game, and then the result might dictate what happens next week against LAFC.
Absolutely. Feed the big three, and Jack McGlynn definitely brings that. All right. Predictions, guys. Tim, what do you got for me? Sunday afternoon, Geodis Park opening. What do you see happening?
I mean, with my head, I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. My heart says that this team wants any chance to spoil anything that Nashville does. We saw it last year in the playoffs. And even in their regular season games when they were in the Eastern Conference, they were always very close, hard fought. teams winning 1-0, one way or the other. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 1-0 win for either team, honestly, but it's probably going to be a draw. I mean, it is Nashville, and what a fitting way to open their stadium than a draw for them. So I think 1-1 is probably the most realistic.
They broke the record last year, right? In a single season?
They tied it. They tied it. Yeah.
17. Yep.
Of course they did.
Of course they did. Justin, what do you see happening, man?
It'll be interesting. It's why I'm excited to be heading down to Nashville this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a fun time. Gonna be tailgating with some friends that are Nashville fans. Get a little lay of the land, see how things are. I'll be sure to get a whole bunch of picks from in and around the area.
Just be careful those bridal shower parties.
Oh boy, yeah, those
bachelorette parties, I should say.
Those are everywhere. But no, it'll be an exciting atmosphere, and yeah, my heart wants to go with like a 1-0 win, a smash and grab, and just steal 3 points, and and just spoil the party. Realistically, I see a 1-1 draw, as Tim said. I think listen, neither of these teams are scoring more than 2 goals. Nashville has not scored more than 2 goals all season. The Union can do it, but I mean, they're a team that designed they don't need to. Nashville, I just don't think can score more. It's rare when they do in a season. So I definitely think it's one of those games where I think the Union could get one off outside the normal run of play, and then Nashville, change things up in the second half and equalize, kind of like the Montreal game. The only difference is, road point. I think you're okay with it in opening up the stadium and focusing on a next week where you have 3 games or 4 games in 11 days.
Yeah, man.
So it'll be in a bit of a crazy situation. So I'm curious to see if this might be the start of Jim's squad rotation.
We shall see. Should be very interesting. Should be a fun one as well. Of course, guys, if you're heading down to Nashville, make sure you guys find Justin Friedberg and just let him know those nicknames are a little bit too crazy, but we are here for it. We are absolutely here for it. Absolutely. All right, guys, it's going to do it for another episode of Duke by the River. Thanks again to Drake Hills for hopping on in. Thank you guys for tuning on into another episode. Make sure you guys enjoyed it. Please leave a like there and make sure you guys subscribe. We do broadcast all the live portions of the podcast here on El Parcero Phillies YouTube channel. And, of course, you can find us wherever you stream podcasts from Apple, Google, and Spotify. Find us under PSN Radio. You can find all of your favorite Phillies sports on our podcast on there as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Justin Infantino Body Double Friedberg. That is Tim Guth below him. And, of course, I'm El Parcero Philly, and we're telling you guys to do ball.